Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino and UFC Fight Pass.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule on UFC Fight Pass is in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by our March of Ides, Mario Lopez.
Hey, what's going on, Kimster? Salute to you, Smoking Tim Frazier, and
Tino on the edits. All right, the bout sheet for this program. We had knockout chaos in Saudi Arabia. And folks, we're going to Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, and chill. Wow. And then also fight preview, Ask Mario, and final flurries. But we want to let you know this podcast is sponsored by Hustler Casino, located just 15 minutes from downtown L.A. During the last Monday of the month, if you play No Limit Hold'em, you're going to win a chance to play on the award-winning live stream show, Hustler Casino Live. The lucky player will be staked to $5,000 to play on the live stream. The winning player must stay through the duration of the whole stream. So stop by and play all your favorite games at Hustler Casino or check them out online at hustlercasino.com.
Round 1.
All right, let's get started. Round number 1, Friday afternoon from the Kingdom Arena in Saudi Arabia on the Zone pay-per-view. And Mario, I think the card just ended about 5 minutes ago.
Whoa.
But the main event of the night, Anthony Joshua lowers the kaboom on Francis Ngannou, stopping him in 2. Mario, the question is very simple. Did AJ uphold the honor of boxing with this victory?
80 slow clap.
Oh, wow, really?
80 slow
really?
clap.
I didn't know you take that seriously.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Can I tell you something about AJ? I'm going to talk about him as a person first before I talk about him as a fighter. I've really grown to respect and like him a lot. After his loss with Andy Ruiz, which by the way, he handled like a gentleman. He was not salty or bad-mouthing Andy. Ever since that loss and even the 2 losses to Usyk, he never spoke an ill word of his opponents. He's remained a class act and a gentleman. And what did he do, Kim? He got back in the gym, rededicated himself, and started keeping busy. We talk about activity mattering. Mattering? Did I just make that up? Is that the tequila talking? Yeah. I'm sorry, folks. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. We talk about how activity matters. Making the words over here. We talk about how it matters, and he fought what? 4 times?
In 342 days.
Exactly. And boy, did he look sharp. Unlike Fury, he actually trained for this fight. And now, granted, he was going up against a behemoth of a man in Ngannou, 272 pounds chiseled, but still his second professional professional boxing match, because he's very well experienced as far as fighting. But man, that's where you showed where the levels were. It only took 2 rounds. He dropped him 3 times, and he must have unlaunched the biggest right hand I think I've ever seen. It looked like a Randy Johnson fastball. Right down the middle, straight as an arrow. He's always had a nice right hand. And this is where you really show how experience and the different quality of fighter that Joshua was to Ngannou. Remembering he's an Olympic gold medalist and obviously former heavyweight champion. He was biting on all the feints. He got him to feint, and he got Ngannou to keep pawing down. After seeing the fight and kind of studying it, once he started sidestepping and getting his distance, and he double feinted, he waited for him to kind of paw down his jab. Boom! Both times came over a lazy jab with that straight right, sat him down, set him up the exact same way, but went to the body, went back to the head with the jabs, went back to the body, went back to the head. The only time he ever hit him with those rights, he dropped him. He hit him one time and he kind of wobbled him. He didn't drop him right there. It was more of a right hook. But when he got his distance and he was able to get him to feint and paw down that jab and climb over it, that second one that sat him down, that was all she wrote. And the third one shot out like a missile, and it was posterized. And now I think Ngannou is going to have one of those memes and moments that will always follow him. But for having 2 losses and making $30 million, tip of the hat to him. Nothing to be ashamed of. My guy came out of the UFC, having never had a professional fight, fought arguably two of the top heavyweights in this generation. Losses to both, but really got paid handsomely. And he's a really solid individual himself, so I'm happy to see that. But man, AJ really put a statement, and now there's so much buzz about him. They're like, oh, he's the man now. Now, you can't discredit Usyk, who beat him twice.
Yeah.
But if for some reason Fury is able to get past Usyk, he won for losing against Usyk, and now he's back. And I think the biggest fight that could be made, assuming Fury gets past Usyk, is Joshua in Fury. Funny how things work out, huh?
Literally the biggest fight in boxing.
Literally.
Should that happen. Now, a couple things about Ngannou. No matter what happened on Friday, it's a success story. He's the most well-known and lucrative 0-2 fighter in the history of boxing.
In the history of the sport.
I don't think it'll ever be matched. And also, based on what happened in October, his greatest weapon was gone. The element of surprise.
Right.
Because at that point, the way he performed and how close it was, with many people thinking, hey, he may have beat Tyson Fury, that had to motivate Anthony Joshua. Now, I will say, you outlined a lot of what happened tactically. One other thing I want to add. Once he went southpaw, it was almost like he laid out a welcome mat for that right hand right down the middle.
Right down the middle. That's right. His first knockdown.
And I'm like,
southpaw. But then he knocked him down with standing conventional too.
And my view is, you're not Hello Kitty. Don't get cute. Be physical and rough. But the fight was over. It was almost like a dose of reality with that first knockdown. It's like, welcome to world-class professional boxing. Now,
the extra 20 pounds of muscle did not mean a thing. And his approach, or strategy, I should say, I don't know what he was thinking, because if you're going to fight someone like a Joshua and you have that much weight advantage on him, you better make it ugly. You better get in there. You better think you're doing an MMA fight. But actually trying to trade with him we saw how it worked out.
Bottom line is, there's too much airspace.
Exactly.
If you made this into a telephone battle and Ngannou could kind of grapple, wrestle, and take away the chest and be up on the chest, he might have had a chance to muck and grind this a little bit. But the fact that he was able to unfurl his arms, Anthony Joshua would have paid you to fight that way if you're Francis Ngannou. Couple of things here, though. Are we making too much out of this? I think the renaissance of Anthony Joshua is great for him. It's great for the business of boxing. But let's face it, he faced a boxing novice. Isn't this still more of an indictment on Tyson Fury?
I think a little bit of both. I think, yes, it is more of an indictment on Tyson Fury, who was incredibly underprepared and didn't take the fight seriously, still managed to escape with a victory, a controversial one, but a victory nonetheless. And I think the same thing would have happened had Tyson actually prepared. But I also think Joshua looked incredibly sharp because of his activity.
Yes.
And I think whoever would have been in front of him that night, I think maybe would have suffered the same fate. Maybe not as quick, but I think outside of Fury and Usyk, I think Joshua is the best heavyweight in the world right now, especially the way he's got his mojo back, he's got his confidence back. I think he's firing on all cylinders. The guy really is an incredible story, the way he's turned his career around.
And credit to Ben Davidson. There seems to be a really good chemistry fit in the corner with him and AJ. So there you have it. Anthony Joshua blows out Ngannou in 2. And we're going to talk about the length of the broadcast a little bit later.
Before we move on to the next fight, do you think because that fashion, we haven't discussed this with you, in the way it ended, we're going to continue to see more guys from the world of MMA, UFC, maybe try to cross over? Or is that the exclamation point?
End.
That's the end, right?
It's the end.
It's the end, right?
It's the end.
That's what I was thinking.
It was supposed to be the end in October.
Right. But I mean, that's exactly, I'm like, and even another guy like another Conor McGregor, I don't think people will buy it anymore.
You know
right?
what that fight was in October? Fury against Ngannou. It was supposed to be that low-budget popcorn movie that no one thought was going to be good. It actually played to better reviews, so they make a sequel. And then after the sequel, they're like, okay, no part 3.
Right.
We're done. If I am...
That's what I thought, too. I didn't know.
If I'm His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh, I'm thinking, okay, I did it. I paid everyone well.
Right.
We're doing real boxing.
Right.
We got better B-ball. We got Usyk against Fury. We've done it. We've gotten some headlines. Let's move on to some real boxing.
Right.
And speaking of real boxing, on this undercard, a couple of very, very interesting things happen. Your new WBA junior middleweight champion of the world, the Dream, Israel Madrimov, Rex Magomed Kurbanov in 5. And for the WBC featherweight title, controversy in a draw. Ray Vargas retains his title against Nick Wrecking Ball. And heavyweights in action, talking about activity mattering. Joseph Parker with a 12-round decision over Zhang, getting off the canvas twice. Mario, Joseph Parker is 5-0 since the beginning of 2023. Again, I don't want to belabor it, but I will. He looked so comfortable, even with the early knockdowns. He got into a groove. He was sharp. He was quick. Andy Lee did a great job of guiding him. But this is what I thought was interesting. Zhang looked so out of shape, but I looked it up. He was only 4 pounds heavier than he was for his last fight. Here's the difference. When he faced Joe Joyce, he's facing a behemoth who moves like a glacier. Those 4 pounds against a guy that could move off a little bit and had a quickness, it almost seemed like it was about 15 to 20 pounds of difference. I believe that Zhang's gas tank the last 5 rounds, even with the late knockdown, was on empty.
Joe Parker is another guy who's done a nice job resurrecting his career. And again, him being so active really did factor into this. I think him being in shape, him sort of recognizing the position he was in once he did get knocked down and adjusting accordingly was nice. And yeah, Zhang, who had a lot of momentum going into it too. I don't know if it was his inactivity, maybe just the style that was a little bit bad. I'm still kind of high on him, and I think there could be some fun fights made because he did drop him twice, which is it makes it really interesting. But he's the kind of guy that does have to stay active to stay in shape and to stay sharp.
Over 290.
Yeah, he doesn't have
thinking,
he doesn't have the luxury to be able to.
You know
get
who I
away
like
with
290 pounds? My defensive tackles.
Right.
I still generally like my heavyweights around 270 or below.
Right.
And look, he's a locomotive with that left hand. How do you avoid a locomotive? Move over 6 inches either way. And they have to reset. And there were too many rounds where I'm thinking to myself, you know what? You have 2 knockdowns. But when those fights or those rounds are close and uneventful and it's tactical, I'm thinking that favors Joe Parker.
Right.
And I just said to myself, well, you are playing with fire. And I know Zhang was very upset by the decision. My view is this. Out of those other 10 rounds when there was not a knockdown, did he win another 2 or 3 rounds? I am not sure about that.
No, it was super close. And I was thinking maybe if he could have squeezed out another knockdown, then okay.
Yeah.
Then that's a big difference. But yeah, it was a close fight. Credit to Parker. Do you find it worthy enough for a rematch?
Yes, and I believe that there's a rematch clause.
Well, then Zhang has a real opportunity here if they move quickly on it to show that maybe he didn't possibly train hard enough. Maybe he was dealing with something that we don't know about. But if he comes back in a big fashion, he knows he can hurt him, and he's able to be impressive, then maybe he can get back in the mix.
If there is a rematch, if I'm the handlers of Zhang, I say, look, we got to be at 275. Work on that cardio, that gas, because this guy's going to be mobile, agile.
Right.
And he's not going to always be hostile, but he's going to be very quick. And that was certainly shown. As for the Ray Vargas-Nick Ball fight, look, I can't give a unbiased opinion on this because I'm probably the greatest detractor of Ray Vargas, who I've called the most boring, stinking Mexican champion I've ever seen.
Ooh, that's a bold statement.
He really is. He's the type of fighter that I've always said, I call him the human bathroom break. You know why? Because when he's fighting, I go to the bathroom, I get a drink, I meet some friends, 45 minutes, I come back to my press row.
Damn, you're
seat.
dropping for 45 minutes?
No, well, with the drink and with my friends. And you know what? When I come back, I always say to myself, as they're announcing a decision for a Ray Vargas fight, I always say to myself, yeah, I didn't miss much. I didn't miss much, but I thought Nick Ball, although one of those knockdowns was very dubious, second half of the fight, I thought he started to chip away. I thought he had 2 knockdowns that you say that's 10-8, both sides. And I believe that Ray Vargas was a little bit fortunate to retain his WBC featherweight title. And Mario, a young man from Uzbekistan that I've been very high on from the beginning, I remember being embedded in his training camp the night that Mikey Garcia fought Jesse Vargas, covering for ESPN. I forecasted great things for him. I thought Madrimov looked really good against Kurbanov.
No, that kid, we've been high on him for like a minute. So I think he's got some big fights in his future.
He's not fundamentally perfect. He's very free-flowing.
But he's fun.
Yes, but he'll hang a curveball. But his athleticism And I talked to Joel Diaz, and he says, Steve, I saw ring rust. I'll admit it. Also, he goes, he was in Uzbekistan for a while. He hasn't fought in over a year. He said, Steve, I only trained him for 2 weeks. He did not come out to camp in Indio. And because his amateur coach had to coach the Uzbekistan team in a tournament, he basically trained himself for a few months, and I took over the last couple months. He goes, he will get better. Keep this in mind. This is for the WBA vacant title. I am being told that Virgil Ortiz, who's ranked 3rd, Virgil Ortiz is coming back, it looks like April 27th.
Good.
We could see a Madrimov-Virgil Ortiz showdown by the late summer.
Listen, I love that.
Uh-oh.
I love that. And whoever is the victor, I think deserves Zoo or a shot at
Yes.
Zoo. Don't you?
As Larry Merchant once said, fights make fights. So let's start pairing these guys off.
Absolutely.
Now, Mario, this is the funniest thing. I actually watched this card at Tom's Watch right across the street from the Crypto.com at LA Live. This is how long the show was and how monotonous and how long it dragged on. Tom's Watch on a weekday does not open till 11. The pay-per-view card started at 10. Did you know in the first hour 45 when me and Tino got there, they only showed one fight?
What were they doing?
A lot of talking. A lot of talking. And I actually had a haircut appointment because I was looking like a chia pet and I needed the paint job. The chrome bumper was coming in a little bit too much. At 5 in Montebello, I actually did not get to see the main event. I had to leave at 4:05.
I remember.
And when you called me on the way, you're like, hey, Steve, I just got off of work. What happened in the fight? I said, they're still going on.
That's how I was able to watch it?
Yes. And I'm just thinking to myself, Mario, look, I like what they're doing, but I have a couple of suggestions. Commissioner Kim here, if I ruled the world like Curtis Blow, if you're going to do a weekday card.
Or Lauren Hill.
Yeah, no more than 4 fights. You don't need 6 or 7. And the other thing is.
Or if you're going to do 6 or 7, at least keep it moving like the UFC.
Right. And we'll talk about that later.
Right.
But I believe when it comes to the preliminaries, no more than a 10 to 15 minute delay from the time the fighters step out of the ring.
Absolutely.
Let's get them ready. Now, for the main event, I get it. You want to build it up. Let's go about 15 to 20, maybe 25. But I just want to make it's a constructive criticism. How many people do you know of in America on a work day, still Friday, it's casual,
that can just surrender 8 hours in a day to watch fight? There's nobody.
Someone in boxing told me the funniest line. He goes, Steve, the only thing I can surrender for 8 hours on a Friday is work. That's it.
Yeah.
And so my view is this. Look, we all know that in boxing, unlike the UFC, it is about the main fight. Nobody really cares about the undercard. We have to be honest about it. And I actually like this undercard, but the show did seem to drag on. Only reason, because it did.
So there was no logic behind it or no strategy. Look, I hope His Excellency recognizes that and is able to make the adjustment because, like you mentioned already, UFC and I believe Dana, and we might get into it a little bit later, they're all
about the pace.
There's no reason.
Right.
There's no reason to have these crazy delays. Well, I could see if there was a certain logic behind it. Fighters arriving, I don't know, staggered. I can't even think of a legitimate reason.
I have been told that His Excellency had another appointment, and he definitely wanted to see a couple of fights. I get it. No. So here's the thing, though, Mario. If that was a Saturday afternoon, and let's say we had a party, we could do that all day. We wouldn't actually mind.
Yeah, on a Saturday, right.
We actually would not mind the halftime
during
show.
The week, bro, you can't.
But during the week when everyone's working and you got LA traffic to hit, and then like literally I'm on the 60 and someone calls me and says, Steve, the fight's over. And I'm like, my God, I just should have stayed another 15 minutes. But that's the whole thing. I believe that pay-per-view cards, in my view, Mario, should be no more than 4 fights. I remember when HBO, during one of their last broadcasts, moved up the pay-per-view start time an hour. It was the Golovkin-Canelo rematch. So because everyone said, okay, we're going to do this thing early. We're going to move it along. You know what happened, Mario? After a couple of early knockouts, Munguia knocked out somebody in like 2 rounds, or a Canadian guy. They had an hour delay. The main event did not start any earlier because there's a belief that the longer we stretch out a broadcast, we're going to get more pay-per-view buys. But Mario, is there any proof that the longer you have a don't you think if you've not bought the show by the second fight, are you enough of a fan to even purchase that thing?
The only way that will happen is if the fights prior, for some reason, were spectacular knockouts and created so much buzz that people called other people and say, "Hey, you got to get this.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable." But I don't even know if that is worth it, because you're just alienating the fans that you already have, and then you're like pissed off by the time the main event comes.
Think about it. This card was basically 2 full football games.
Dude,
That's how long.
come on.
Yeah.
No, that's absurd.
All right, so
That's
anyway,
absurd.
when we come back, we'll talk about a lot of other stuff going on in the game of boxing. This is the 3 Knockdown Rule on the UFC Fight Pass.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by way, you get 10 grand.
For my fans.
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving.
Raise it up.
And we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule on the UFC Fight Pass. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get involved with the 3 Knockdown Rule and sponsor our fine program, we still have slots available. Please reach out to us by emailing info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid.io is an online platform that is launching soon that helps public figures and professionals in the world of boxing get sponsorships. We are proudly working with boxbid.io.
News and notes.
All right, moving on to news and notes. Mario, this was really interesting. On Thursday morning, after I sent you a couple of things, you gave me an early morning phone call, and you said, "Kim, is this real?" And I'm not going to lie to you. When I first heard about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on Netflix, July 20,
I thought somebody was messing with me.
on Twitter, I actually had to check people's bios to make sure that they were not parody accounts. But yes, Jake Paul is quote-unquote boxing, fighting, facing Iron Mike on Netflix from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas.
Now, look, here's the thing. I have many thoughts. Number one, I'm assuming it's just an exhibition, and that's what it's looking like. I was told they're now fighting with 18-ounce gloves and headgear. Then what are your thoughts? You're just hearing this for the first time? 18-ounce gloves and headgear. So I'm like, what's going on there?
Point?
What is the point? And let's say for some reason Jake Paul is victorious. You're beating a beloved icon legend in the sport who's 31 years older than you. Do you think you're going to get some respect or any sort of props for that? And look, Mike's going there. I'm sure he's getting paid handsomely, and he's looking at it like he's having fun with this kid. He's got nothing to prove, and obviously nothing that's going to affect his legacy. He's built up enough equity, and I love me some Mike Tyson. So I don't really I wish he wasn't doing it, to be honest, just for people.
18-ounce that's bigger than most sparring
I
gloves.
know. That's what I'm saying. So then what are we watching here? Who's going to watch this? Of course we're going to watch because we're degenerates.
And it's not pay-per-view, to be fair. It's part of our Netflix subscription.
That's encouraging. I hope we get to see more shows like this. But I want to know what's Jake Paul's end game here. Because they've been, for the most part, and I never knock anyone's hustle, but retired, much older.
Oh, yeah, because you know he's fighting after this, right?
Who's that?
Larry Holmes.
Exactly.
And then after that, you know he's fighting, right? Joe Lewis.
Yeah, then Rocky Marciano.
And then he's going to do an AI, and they're going to do Jack Dempsey. I mean, he's going to fight all the legends.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the end game here? He's not going to be fighting Artur Beterbiev. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, you asked that. You know what's funny? You asked that last week after that last fight against Ryan Borland in Puerto Rico.
Right.
And I will give him credit because 4 days later he said Lopez. Boom. Ace card. Tyson.
I know. It's like, it's almost WWE at this point now. We've reached
Sports
WWE.
and entertainment is what they call it. But Mario, I don't know.
The only satisfying thing could be is if Tyson, just even for like a round or two,
Tyson
harkens back
he
to
didn't go
89
Tiger.
Tyson.
Yeah, he didn't go Tiger.
Yeah, exactly.
He went Tyson.
If he goes 89 Tyson on me and maybe just breaks his kid's, jaw off the top of the first round
That'd
or two,
go viral.
Then not only would it go viral, then all would be right in the world. And I think, then I think he'd get some props. Okay, Jake Paul, you stepped in there.
Mario, if this was actually a quote-unquote real fight where the rules of engagement are, hey, guys, this is a prize fight. Go ahead, hit each other hard with 10-ounce gloves. I'd be very interested to see how Jake Paul will actually deal with that, because Mike Tyson can still beat up most average human beings very easily.
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole thing, I'm trying to find it.
Now, the other thing is, though, Mario, do you remember as a kid in the late 80s, do you ever see footage of the old press conferences with Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Duran? They used to have those big, oversized gloves.
Yeah, that's what they're basically going to be fighting on.
But they would always have those guys with Bob Arum or Don King holding up in these big gloves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what 18-ounce
Bro,
gloves
even
are,
when I
basically.
fight with 16-ounce gloves, when we're sparring most of the time.
Like pillows.
Well,
sort of.
When I mean, you can still get hurt in those, but those are the guys, right? But 18 ounce. But when you go, even when I go down just to 14 ounce, I feel it feels so much more like ooh. So I can't even imagine going up that much to 18. I guess I'm not gonna loss for words because it is entertainment. Who exactly is the target audience? Well, I guess guys like us that want to check out Tyson and people maybe that want to see him get his head taken off. But I want to know what's the end game here. He's done a great job as our Hustler Casino sponsor, as a hustler, to create these events, generate a lot of revenue for himself.
But again, that term, sports and entertainment, I think that is the key. Like, you like the WWE/WWF. You know what the score is. You know what, but are you not entertained?
Right, but there's storylines. It's more of a soap opera. I guess we're buying into this sort of. If that's the new. When does reality and not non-reality and fiction go? How does it? What are the lines here? Right, there isn't a line anymore, especially in this generation.
And look, this is a little bit different than an event you called for Triller.
No, Mike was fighting a real fighter. There's Roy Jones, one of the great fighters. And at that point, Roy Jones was already big, and they were about equal weight.
Right. And
that was funny. That's funny that you say that. Was a bit surreal because there was no audience allowed that day. So I'm literally by myself with my buddy Tootie.
Yeah.
Nobody else inside of Crypto, which was Staples Center at the time, and I'm seeing Mike Tyson fight Roy Jones, and I'm ringside. I'm on the apron, and I'm watching. I'm like, I'm the only one here watching this. This is wild, and they were throwing down.
People don't want to admit it, but when you watch boxing or any combat sport, part of the allure is the violence that could be had, and the fact that someone could get KTFO. Now, if the rules of
Ngannou,
right, exactly, and if that element is taken away, I'm not so sure how much appeal it has to a guy like me, because I'm a purist to begin with. I am. I'm Asian Andy Rooney. I like the old things. And I'm a little bit surprised that, given the fact that Mike Tyson is a real historian who loves and respects the game.
But at the same time, he probably, I'm sure he knows about the times that Ali fought Alzado.
That was a real fight. You ever seen that fight? That fight was a real fight, though.
No,
no headgear, 10-ounce gloves.
Correct.
And
he fought Antonio Inoki. So my point is, he's aware of these novelty type
it's
fights.
Nothing new.
It's nothing new, and especially with Floyd doing these, fighting 16-year-old Japanese kids, this and that. But I just don't like the fact that Tyson's almost 60, bro.
That's the thing.
That's 31 years is a lot. And look, I'm all for fighting for the older guy, being that now we're now in our 50s. You know what I'm saying? But bro, 60 was a 20-something-year-old kid who's all juiced up. Not that I think Mike could get hurt. I just don't like my.
And what about the drug testing situation? Again, let's be honest. Let's protect. I don't want to see Mike get laid out.
No, I don't want to see that happen.
Speaking of that, you bring up old guys. There are reports, and it looks like it's going to happen. Manny Pacquiao could be coming back. Oh, so you don't like that
that's
one?
More to me. That's more sad.
Like
that's more depressing.
Me too.
Pacquiao. Do you agree? Isn't that weird?
You know why?
Because Mike, I could see the novelty here. The Pacquiao was like, wow, that's it. Well, first of all, he's fighting a real fighter and a big guy at that. And it's someone who can, I think it's a very dangerous fight for him too, because he can crack. And Manny, in my mind, in our era, one of the best fighters we've seen.
No
honestly.
doubt. He's on the Mount Rushmore.
He's
on
the
past
Mount
25
Rushmore.
Years.
Absolutely. Especially fighting out of his weight class, like I've said, and providing all these wonderful moments. But the fact that he's generated so much money, so much money in his career, and clearly a lot of that is gone because he's such a nice guy and so generous, takes care of all his people and random people out in the Philippines, and people have taken advantage of him, and now he finds himself in this spot. That is really heartbreaking.
It is, because, look.
I think that's more sad than Tyson.
I'm with you, because I expected better or differently from the Pac-Man. And when he lost to Ugas in the summer of 2021, he lost. The reflexes weren't there. He wasn't sharp, didn't have the snap. But I said, you know what? You still fought as hard as you could.
Right.
It's a respectable performance. You get to go out on your feet.
Exactly.
And here's the thing. I thought, maybe I was being naive, you have bigger and better things in your life. You're going to run the Philippines, or you're going to be a statesman. You're going to help lead that country into great things because people still love you. And to come back to boxing, see, a lot of comebacks, I'm like, I get it, man. You have no other. But remember that old line? What's one of the most famous lines that we love from Rocky? During the first date between Rocky and Adrian, Adrian says, while they're skating, hey, why do you fight?
Because I can't sing or dance.
I thought Manny Pacquiao had more options than to just do what he's doing.
Well, supposedly, the nail in the coffin was when he decided to run for president, and he used a lot of his own money.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't win, but it was a lot of money. And look, that was a little bold, president, my God. Was he a senator? Was he a congressman?
He was a senator.
Senator,
Yeah.
wow, that's wild. I mean, you just think about that. He should have just, if he wanted to stay in that lane, or there's so many other things he would have done, but just the fact that he spent so much money, it didn't come to fruition. It's come to this. It is a little heartbreaking because I really do like him, and I think he's a really good person.
Yeah, and in terms of the money, it reminds me of the greatest lines from the philosopher Pat Ewing from the University of Georgetown when they asked him about, hey, man, how come the NBA players are doing this? You guys are having issues during the NBA lockdown of 98. And this is something that should be hung up in the Smithsonian. Pat Ewing said, well, you don't understand. They're like, what? We make a lot of money.
We spend a lot
but we spend a lot of money.
Exactly.
And Manny Pacquiao spends a lot of money.
He does. He does.
Mario, moving on here, May 4th, it has been announced on PBC on Prime Video in conjunction with The Zone. Canelo Alvarez takes on Jaime Munguia, and Mario, you being the Mexican Adam Schefter.
Who called it? I called it weeks ago, didn't I?
call you Babe Ruth. You called your shot.
See? I told you. And you know what? I'm glad that fight is official. I really like that fight. You know who else really likes that fight? Freddie Roach.
Oh, really?
He's very excited about
Gotta bring
that
Freddie
fight.
in. We got to bring Freddie in here.
We got to bring him in. Look, I think that fight, regardless of the outcome,
gonna be fun.
Is going to be fun. It's going to be action-packed, and leather is going to fly. And I think Munguia, again, regardless of the outcome, if he fights with heart and he fights the way he fights, even if it doesn't go well for him, and he gets stopped and whatever, I don't think he's going to lose any sort.
Just don't do a Charlo.
No.
Hold on.
No, are you kidding?
In the immortal words of Herman Edwards.
Get out of here.
In the immortal words of Herman Edwards, you play to win the game. Hello? Charlo in September did not even play the game.
Do you honestly think Munguia is going to try to fight like that?
No, he's
I
not.
think he's going to go out there and let those
Go
hands
with your
fly,
boots off.
And he's
Go with
gonna
your
try,
boots on.
Yes, I think he's going to let those hands fly. And and by the way, he's a big super middleweight, bro.
Yes, and he's active.
Yes, he's active. He's busy. He's young. He's got a lot of experience. Look, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
Wow,
I do.
really?
I think it's going to be competitive. Look, obviously, you got to favor Canelo, and I am favoring Canelo, being honest. And I like both fighters, but I think the youth, the activity, the game plan and experience will bode well for him, and I think he will have a good showing. I really do.
You know, you say that, it reminds me of something. You bring up Freddie Roach, I'll never forget. This is when Manny Pacquiao was still training upstairs. It was in the fall of 2003. I was a huge Marco Antonio Barrera fan. I really was. I thought he was maybe the second or third best fighter coming in to the fall of that year when he was matched up with Pacquiao.
Yep.
And I remember saying, oh, man, Barrera's going to win. He's just too slick for Manny Pacquiao. I'd watch Pacquiao work out.
That fight was in San Antonio.
Yes, it was. And so Freddie's out there, and he goes, Steve, you like Barrera, right, a lot? He was like, great fighter. Maybe, I think, second or third on pound for pound. And he goes, Steve, I want to tell you one thing right now. You think Barrera's really a good boxer, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, he is. He goes, but Steve, here's the thing. He's a great boxer when you don't press the pace. When things are slow and Barrera can see things unfolding, he's great. He goes, Steve, I'm just telling you, we're going to quicken the pace on Barrera. And if you watch that fight, Barrera was on his heels from that very first knockdown. He could not hold him off.
Cannon.
Right.
He dropped him like 3 times, didn't
right. He kept beating him up. It came in waves. So let's make the case for Munguia.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I say?
Yeah.
The activity, The pace?
The odometer. 65 fights for Canelo.
There's
you
that,
don't
right?
know when it's going to run out.
No, you're exactly right. And Munguia's got a lot of fights himself, too. But the youth and that young energy, I think, is going to really... I just think it's going to be competitive. Like I said, I think it's going to be competitive. I don't think there's any sort of mismatch right here. I think it's well-deserved, and I think it's going to be a really good fight.
Freddie tells me before I leave, he goes, Steve, I just want you to know, I've put some money on Manny by knockout. I said, you're out of your fucking mind.
Oh, Freddie came up that
He
night.
did. He made some money, more than the 10% he got for working
good for him.
that corner.
Good for him.
Mario, as of right now, April 20th, Devin Haney is still fighting Ryan Garcia.
Whoa.
Okay, you want to get into this?
This has been my favorite reality show. My wife likes the Real Housewives and that whole Bravo.
Yeah, that's lightweight stuff.
This is
real stuff. Yeah.
This is like our Real Housewives. This reality show that Ryan Garcia has created. Very entertaining. I keep questioning, is he going to make it to the fight? About a week ago, he said, I'm done posting.
Just boxing.
About anything else other than boxing. Only boxing-related content, only boxing-related questions from here on out. I was like, all right. He's in Dallas. He's focused. He's ready to go. That lasted, I think, 2 days. Then my guy started going off again on some stuff. And there's even videos of he's like training, and then I see Derek James sitting there, and I'm like, he's got to be so frustrated. He knew what he was getting into.
Did he really?
Did he not know what he was getting
into?
into?
Well, I think when you train Ryan Garcia at this moment, you are there to pretend like everything's okay, give the right answers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He knew what he was getting into.
And essentially enable and lie. That's the truth.
Well, he looked frustrated in that video, the one I saw, where he's just sort of sitting there, and I think he's making a TikTok. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, as a parent, when you have a kid who's acting out, you discipline. Obviously, if you're a good parent, you discipline him. You show him.
You said good parent. Okay.
When you show him the ways of what he's doing wrong. So I'm thinking to myself, why, when there's not that much time left, do we have not his actual parents, his trainer, people at Golden Boy, sort of coming in and righting the ship? Do you think, because even if, let's say, given the benefit of the doubt that he's trolling, it's not a good look. You don't ever want to be trolling about kids getting molested.
Especially for a mental health advocate.
Yes, there's that. Exactly. So why aren't they doing it? And the only thing, because it would make sense, right? The only thing I can think of is you don't want to upset this guy, push him over the edge. You just want to get him to the dance.
Right.
You just want to get him
cash
there.
that check.
Let's cash that check or cash out, and let's just get him there. Now, Ryan knows what he's up against with Devin. He's fought him 3 times before. He knows it, and he knows he's gotten better. Is this all a mirage? Is he secretly training like these Floyd Mayweather hours, 2, 3 in the morning that we just don't see? I'm fascinated by all of this, but it can't be a compliment to the training. I'm more intrigued and fascinating and confused about what's going on and how it's being handled.
I am with you, because what is actually the reality here in this reality show called Ryan Garcia World? Because, Mario, when I look at the training footage of Ryan Garcia, he looks terrible. All the dummies out there think it's great because he looks so fast and flashy, and he telegraphs every punch, pulls back on every punch, and a guy like Devin Haney, his eyes and his boxing IQ, he will stifle that and neutralize it easily. I saw 2 different versions. I saw Ryan Garcia hitting heavy bag, putting everything into every punch, flailing away, closing his eyes. Well, in fact, it was that wild card. Devin Haney hitting heavy bag, looking sharp, focused. And I'm thinking, one guy's here to win a fight. One guy's here to do a show. I'm just telling you, the thing about Ryan Garcia that I've always thought was he wants to look good, doesn't always want to be good, because there's a difference.
He's doing everything on camera, but training for the fight, really. Right. All the focus is not on Haney where it needs to be. When you're fighting that caliber of fighter, you got to live, breathe, eat, sleep, everything your opponent. He's got so many distractions, and again, the only fighter I've been able to see that pull that off is like a Manny Pacquiao, ironically, that we were talking about earlier. But Manny Pacquiao had God-given special abilities, a speed and power that you don't see
Manny,
too often.
But in terms of Manny, can I tell you something? Even during the height of Manny Mania, I was given access for once or twice during those camps, me and Brian Hardy, during my Max boxing days. Like, look, would he show up late by an hour and a half? Yes.
He
would he frustrate everybody? But I have never seen a guy that as soon as he stepped into that gym...
Oh, no, he was focused.
And he would wrap his own hands every time. It's the funniest
that
thing.
was the craziest thing I saw.
He would wrap
his own hands. I love it.
And it would take him about 10 minutes to warm up. And I've never seen a guy that from minute one of his workout went from 0 to 60 to 120 and stayed at 120 for 2.5 hours.
No, I know. He's an animal.
I'm not so sure that's going on with Cringe Rye. Yeah, I said Cringe Rye.
I was talking more about all the different distractions at the same time because Manny was cutting an album, doing the radio, politics. He had 100 people around him. A lot of distractions. You would think that would not...
He ain't that guy. Well, he ain't Manny. He ain't Manny.
That's my point. So... Listen, I'm fascinated and intrigued, and I definitely want to see the fight. Prayers up that it continues. There's bets out there. People think there's no way they allow him. He's going to end up in a psych ward before that. There's a lot of stuff
he's going through some evaluations, though. I know one thing, though. You know who's
Those are crazy claims, though, Kim. There's a lot of stuff. There's like the wild claims. I'm surprised like FBI hasn't come like, bro, you can't just be saying that
I'm just telling you, if there's ever a fight that Alex Jones is going to cover, it's going to be that one. Here's the other thing. I know now Ryan is very, very sponsorship friendly. You know one endorsement deal he's not going to get? Prime energy drink.
Whoa. Then he went up. That's the latest. I'm glad you brought that up. That was the latest one. What happened with Logan Paul? Those were his boys. And then Jake Paul, he's calling him out in this podcast. But he just went off on those guys in Prime and said that they're worshipers of Satan. Anybody who drinks Prime is spawn of Satan, or I don't know, something. All I know is my son loves Prime energy drink, dressed up as a Prime energy bottle.
Wow.
For Halloween.
For an exorcism.
Oh my God. Is he Damien from Omen?
We need an exorcism. Hey, his uncle's name is Damien. But it's wild to me. I said it to my wife. She was cracking up. I sent that video to him. I said, we got to watch Dominic.
Do you think what about this theory? That Ryan is doing all of this to set up that should he lose the fight, which I believe he will, pretty lopsided, that he could say at the end, I was just going through a lot of stuff at the end.
Man, okay, look, then you're setting yourself up then we're looking at Tank 2.0 again. Well, I shouldn't have agreed to this, and I shouldn't have done this, and he weight drained me for this. If he loses and he has that as an alibi and says, well, I was going through stuff, when right now he's saying he's not going through stuff,
he's the boy who cried wolf.
I think he'll really turn literally everyone off.
We should never take him seriously again, if ever. I don't, to be honest with you.
If he shows up to the fight, if he actually shows up to the fight, makes weight, is in shape, and has a decent showing.
All right, what's a decent showing? Losing 8-4, 7-5, or what if he gets blanked 12-0?
Well, look, we don't want Charlo, the reference you made earlier. We don't want that. I'd rather see a guy there go out on his shield, much like the way he approached Tank in round 2. If he approaches Haney that same way throughout the fight, then okay, he might save some grace. I don't know if we'll see that, though.
I thought he looked terrible against Tank.
No, I'm not saying he looked good. I'm saying, but he came with aggression, and at least he came to fight. That was an exciting round. You got to admit it. You got to admit it. He ended up getting dropped, but he didn't run. Would you rather see that or Charlo, Ken?
I would rather, would
you rather see that or Charlo?
But that's like saying, Steve, would you rather have terminal cancer or something else?
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. You can't compare the two. One puts you to sleep, and at least one, you're tuning in.
Yeah, but
that's exciting. I didn't say it'd be effective. Yeah. I said it'd be exciting.
But remember, he took the Tank fight to save boxing. He did it for us.
Bro, I'm dying to see what happens on April 20th and the aftermath.
Yes, as of right now, as we're taping this on a Monday, it is still on.
How many weeks are we at?
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday. Yes. So we're about 4 or 5 weeks.
We're
about 4 or 5 weeks.
3, 4, 5 5.5 weeks.
So we'll be on Ryan Watch on 3 Knockdown.
5.5 weeks.
20th.
Prayers up.
Review preview.
Yeah, moving on here on the 3 Knockdown Rule on the UFC Fight Pass, brought to you by Hustler Casino. We move on to the fight preview Friday night, the UFC Fight Pass. Our good friend Tom Loeffler, 360 Promotions, doing a hell of a job keeping all his fighters active. He knows what he's doing.
Yes,
Callum Walsh headlines at the Garden, so good luck to them.
They've been bringing them along quite well. And UFC Fight Pass plays this fight, so that's awesome.
And also Saturday, I'm very excited about this card on the Zone in Viva Las Vegas. One of the must-see television fighters in the world.
Yep.
All action. He ain't no shrimp, but they call him Cameron.
Cameron.
William Zepeda takes on the tricky Maxie Hughes.
Love me some William Zepeda. I mean, talk about an exciting, fun fighter to watch. Never disappoints anytime you tune in. He's already calling out the likes of like Shakur Stevenson, and I think it's going to be another great showing. This kid has a high ceiling.
Mario, interesting note. This is a double eliminator, I believe, with the WBA and IBF, whose champions are Tank Davis and Shakur. Spoke to Eric Gomez yesterday for my story, K9's Corner on snack.com. He said, Steve, should we win this fight? And Maxie Hughes is pretty solid. He may have beat Kambosos last year.
Yeah.
Summer
he can
on
fight.
ESPN.
This is a real fight.
This is a real fight. So if he's number one, if you are Zepeda, putting aside the network politics and the promotional rivalries, if you're Zepeda's people, who would you rather face, Tank or Shakur?
Shakur. I'm going to tell you why.
Really?
Yes, I'm going to tell you why.
Interesting.
His style bodes well for Tank. Tank can crack.
Yes.
Tank can crack. So he may run him into something. I think that's a much more dangerous fight. Shakur, it's not as dangerous.
But it's trickier. The style is trickier, though.
It is tricky, but I think his style does not bode well for Shakur either. I think his overwhelming pressure style could cause a lot of problems. Shakur, I think, is one of the most talented kids out there. I think that's a very, very difficult fight. It's a safer fight. Even if he were to not be victorious, I think he'd have moments. It wouldn't drop his stock. With Tank, I think it's more dangerous.
That you might get knocked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think, yeah, exactly. So that's why I think I would go Shakur. You don't agree?
I do agree. Look, someone would ask me, Steve, would you rather just get pieced up 8-4 or get KTFO? I'd be like, you know what? I'd rather lose a decision.
Exactly.
That's a natural human reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing about Zepeda, he comes in waves.
That's what I'm saying.
He really does. I mean, look, I thought Mercito Hesta gave a hell of an effort. I was at the Commerce Casino.
And he's a veteran good fighter.
But it's like getting caught up in a riptide. No matter how hard you try to swim, that water gets in your lungs, and guess what comes? More water.
Right.
And you get drowned in leather. And the one thing about Zepeda, he's your classic pressure Mexican fighter.
Love that.
And Mario, it was announced today on this Tuesday by Golden Boy. I found out a couple days ago. They are making the pro debut of a young man by the name of Joel Irarte. Out of Bakersfield, California.
Okay, Bakersfield.
This is their most highly touted true 0-0 prospect since probably Frankie Gomez.
Oh, wow.
Now, I hope it doesn't. I hope it
doesn't go the way of Frankie Gomez.
But I have talked to people. I'm talking about trainers, people that have been in the gym, people that I trust that have watched boxing and cover it. The word that comes out all the time. Special. He's going to be on this card at the Cosmo. I am going to be keeping an eye out. I heard him and Abdullah Mason.
He's on the Zepeda card?
Yes.
Oh, great.
I heard that him and Abdullah Mason at the Olympic trials a couple of years ago had an unbelievable fight. I'm talking about one of those amateur fights that if you upload on YouTube would get 1 million views in a month. I got to look for that fight. I'll send it over to you, but I heard it was an unbelievable war. But Irarte, I'm just telling you, keep an eye out.
Okay.
I think he's going to be really...
Junior welter.
He's a junior welter, and he's pretty young. He'll be a welterweight one day. He's in the money. He's not a strawweight. It's a little bit different.
Oh,
Money's
good. So
a
he's
little
in the
bit
money
different.
fight,
Moving on here on the 3 Knockdown Rule, the Ask Mario segment of this fine program. Here's one from Christian. Have you watched any Pro Box cards? What do you think about the platform? If not, I'd recommend tuning into a couple of their shows. Usually they have pretty good action. They have a card this Wednesday night. Mario, I want to say something about Pro Box. A lot of their stuff is on YouTube. Not only do they do a great job of putting on cards in the middle of the week that help fighters stay busy, rack up wins, and advance a career, there are other stuff where they have shows, and I've sent them to you, with our good friends Tim Bradley, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, George
Jack.
In the production. They do a hell of a job.
They do a really good job in their production. I haven't seen a full show. I'm going to have to check it out. Thank you. But I have seen a lot of clips. They look like they've got a good thing going on over there.
And the thing that I like is they're helping careers.
Yeah.
I don't care if there's two people in front of them, but if you're a fighter and you need 5 victories to move into the rankings, I'll take those fights. And if you're reasonable, and I'm not going to lie to you, the thing I love about their shows, their roundtables, those guys are letting their hands go.
Oh, yeah.
They are not holding back.
Not mincing words.
By the way, you think we're tough on Ryan Garcia?
I didn't think we were tough. I thought we were just kind of reporting the news.
Well, compared to Paulie Malignaggi. I mean, and Tim Bradley. I mean, Paulie a couple weeks ago called Ryan a sociopath. And then Tim added to it. But I love their show. That's very fun, very fast-paced, and it's very unfiltered and honest. So look for Pro Box on YouTube. I think they do a hell of a job. Shout out to them. Here's one from David. Mario, this is a very serious question here. What do you think is Canelo's motive for not wanting to fight Benavidez? Fear, envy, spite, contempt?
No, I don't think he needs it at this point in his life. Once you've made the money he's made, achieved the things that he's achieved, it's unfortunate, but yeah, you can pick and choose how you want. Look, Canelo hasn't ducked anyone, contrary to what people think.
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't. This might be the first time you may want to claim something like that, but prior to this, how many fights? 50-some-odd fights?
No, he's up to 63,
Oh,
64.
see, look at that. When you get to 60-something fights, no, and he has not ducked. He's faced guys when Lara,
Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather at 23.
Golovkin.
3 times.
Exactly. No, there's no fear in Canelo.
No, Maury, I'm with you on that, but there's an old saying, uneasy is the head that wears the crown. He's getting paid $30 million plus.
Right.
He is the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, is he not?
Yes, he is.
Who do you think is the number one contender?
Benavidez.
Okay, you know what I used to hate about 10 years ago? Oh my God, Sergio Martinez is so old, and he was the middleweight champion. We don't want him to fight Golovkin. What are you talking about? That's the game.
That is the game. However, I don't think we're ever going to see that fight because once he goes up to 175, which
he's
going
not going up to his.
No. Once Benavidez,
he might come down though. For that fight, he'll come down.
I don't think he will.
By the way, you know how much?
I don't think he will. I think he struggles mightily, and I think at 175 he's going to be there, and I don't think he's going to come down there.
Let me go Asian Andy Rooney again. Do you think Hagler, after 60-some-odd fights, was pretty worn out after that war against Thomas the Hitman Hearns in 1985? Good fight, right? Pretty good fight, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what he did in his next fight? There was a guy by the name of John the Beast Mugabe who was like 26-0, 26 knockouts. He was the number one contender, by the way, in all 3 sanctioning bodies. I've never seen that before.
Would you say Hagler was the biggest name in the sport at that point? No. As popular as he was.
Top 3.
But he wasn't number 1. Canelo's number 1.
Wait, let me see. No, I think he's up there because Mike Tyson was not the champion yet. Also, he might have been. Checkmate. Call me Bobby Fischer.
No.
Because Ray Leonard was
heavyweight. Who was heavyweight? Was it Larry Holmes still?
Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks were still kind of on the thing. Mike Tyson did not become a champion until November of '86.
But the fact that we have to rattle our brains, I don't think he was number 1. We know for a chance.
You ought to be ashamed of
yourself.
yourself.
We know of a chance. I love Hagler. You know I love Hagler.
Yeah, he's rolling over in his grave.
I love Hagler. Look,
you ought to be ashamed
if you
of yourself.
asked me this about Canelo 5 years ago,
but
very different.
No, but here's
very
my
different.
point. But here's my point.
No, should it be allowed? No, I don't think it
Marvin
should.
Hagler could have easily said, "Who's this Mugabe guy?"
No, of course.
And he said, "You know what? I'll go straight into him." Because he had honor.
Well, men were different back then. I agree.
You said it, not me.
I
Here's
agree.
one from Matty Rolls. Did Joshua do all of us a favor by training properly and showing everyone that these MMA crossover fights are really a farce? Ooh, a farce. When the boxer takes them seriously. A little harsh, though, isn't it?
Farce is a strong word. I think it just, again, shows that there is
levels, as they
drastic
say.
levels to this. And I think you're right. Now that I do think about it, I don't think we'll see it again. At least not for a long while.
Right, it's the end. We're good.
We're good for a while.
So
We're good for
Sean
a minute.
O'Malley, keep doing what you do. We're going to talk about you. You're excellent. We don't need to see you with the. Well, Floyd's retired, but still, again. Here's one from Jeff Zimmerman, big fan of the show. Thoughts on Bud Crawford versus Eubank Jr. and what do you make of Bomac having just trained Chris to a victory and now going against him the next fight? Has that happened before? Mario, your thoughts on Crawford jumping up 2 weight classes? And to be fair, Chris Eubank Jr. is actually a top 5 middleweight by Ring Magazine.
I like the fight a lot.
Oh, you like it?
I do like it a lot. Assuming he's victorious, he makes his claim, stakes his claim to to get into the Canelo sweepstakes. That's another reason, by the way. I don't think Canelo, to rewind a little bit, may not be entertaining Benavidez as much because I think he thinks that the bigger money fight in the easier fight is against Crawford.
Agreed.
I really do think that. I think he's thinking big picture right here. Now, the Eubanks fight, if he's able to be victorious, I think more momentum, a lot of more buzz. It is weird, though, that Bomac did just train him, and now he's training Crawford. Maybe he's looking at it like, I want to see both my guys get paid. But
I find you got to step aside. No, look, that was a one thing.
That's
Bud's
odd,
his
huh?
guy.
No, I know.
And as they say in Texas, nothing personal, just bidness. It's just business.
It is business.
I mean, by the way, Bomac, if you're going to travel again, wherever that fight is, please be very careful of what is in your carry-on bag. Had issues last time. Here's one from Ignacio Ortiz. What do you guys think of the possible El Gallo Juan Francisco Estrada fight against Bam Rodriguez on June 29th happening? And should he win his next fight, what do you think about a Zoo versus Madrimov unification at 154? Again, I think Madrimov's going to have to fight Virgil Ortiz before all of that, so let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Mario, let's just put it out there. Should Bam Rodriguez, the pride of San Antonio, Texas, defeat El Gallo, Juan Francisco Estrada? This is one of the most impressive young runs in recent boxing history.
It is. I feel like we haven't talked about him in a minute, but he deserves to be because he really has had incredible run beating a who's who.
Like Sonny Edwards, Secret Setsor Rungvisai, Carlos Cuadras.
Dude, all the greats, all the champs right there. And if he's able to fight Estrada and beat him, man.
That's one of the best fighters in the world.
That's one of the best fighters in the world. Fighter of the year type caliber.
Yes.
Performances or resume, I should say. And as far as Zoo fighting either Madrimov or Virgil Ortiz, I like them both.
Yes, anyway. Yeah, and here's one from the only Sanch. Ask that Latinx sympathizer, Mario Lopez. What's it going to take for him to see Inoue in Japan or see a fight in Saudi? Seems like big boxing events worldwide are even bigger spectacles and events than in America lately. Mario, do you know that the Inoue fight in May against Louis Neri, it's at the 51,000 capacity.
That's going to be a good fight.
At Tokyo Dome. The demand is so great, they have to do a lottery system for the tickets.
Really?
That's
awesome.
how big it is. Bonsai.
And they don't even clap, which is wild.
They're very demure.
Yeah, they don't even clap. They don't even do that. They're silent out of respect.
Certain fights they do, though. They do. They're not that demure anymore.
Well,
the Tyson Douglas fight was very strange.
which was very odd. If given choice, I would take Saudi over Japan.
Really?
Yes. Just because that's a completely different world, and I want to see it and experience it and the culture itself.
Yeah.
I eat sushi all the time. I feel like I'm, connected to.
You don't want to visit the Hello Kitty factory?
No, I do want to visit.
Really?
I said if given choice, and I had to pick one, I'd go Saudi Arabia. Would you go Japan?
One of my
You'd go Japan.
I'm not. Well, Koreans and Japan haven't always gotten along, but here's the thing. So, one of my bucket list items before I step away from boxing, I want to see Inoue one more time. I got to see him when he was just a guy.
Aside from the fighters, where would you rather visit and spend a week?
Boy, that's a tough one. Both of them are great. Why can't we do both?
Well, I'd love to do both. It's called Sophie's Choice.
Saudi Arabia.
See, you're with me.
Because if you do better BFB ball, it's such a.
I said forget the fights. I said to go.
I Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it's a totally different world.
I've actually been to Asia, and I could just make up for it by watching Shogun, not going to Japan. But anyway, but the thing is, with Inoue, I just think he's a singular talent along with Crawford. I look.
So do I. As diminished as a lot of the fighters or the talent is in this era, you still get gems.
Him and Crawford are so rare, and maybe
Usyk,
and Mario, to see a dome. 51,000. That means every seat basically is going to be filled to watch. I didn't know this. You know, it's the first boxing match since Tyson Douglas.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
At the Tokyo Dome?
Yeah, and I didn't realize the Tokyo Dome had just that's the
that's 1990.
February 10th.
That's a long
Our
time.
date, 1990.
You were in high school.
Senior year, Montebello High School. And by the way, that was the first boxing match, or one of them, that they had, because Tony Tubbs had fought Tyson 2 years earlier.
I remember that.
But for all those years, even though they've had a lot of good fighters, they
wild,
never thought that if some guy's big enough. But my understanding is they have so much demand, there's going to be people upset they're not going to be able to get tickets. I mean, I've been to stadium fights where there's 35, 40,000. I've been there when Cowboys had Pacquiao.
So the Inoue, I was just about to say, Inoue is like their Pacquiao. The beloved, much like Pacquiao, their Chavez, got it.
I mean, it's really a shame that he makes so much money in Japan. I don't think he's ever going to come back to the U.S.
Wow. Not enough yen.
Remember, he's fought here 3 times. He fought on a Tom Loeffler show on one of the Superflies, and he fought twice for Top Rank inside the bubble and the Virgin hotels. But they were small events. And I've told this to Bob and Todd DeBuff. I said, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I know the temperature of the boxing fan. If you had a in-a-way fight against a good, solid fighter like a Neri, you could sell out the crypto. You could sell out in Las Vegas. I don't know if you know this, but when the pandemic first struck in the spring of 2020, he was supposed to fight John Rel Casimero in a unification bout at the Mandalay Bay. My buddy, KO Tickets, Jim Boone, who's the most trusted source for that, he said, Steve, it's the hottest ticket in 10 years. So many high rollers and Japanese whales were coming in. They would have sold that fight out, and then they had to cancel it.
It makes sense in Vegas just for that reason, too. That's wild, too. Yeah.
Then we're never going to see him again. He outgrew it economically.
But even in Vegas, when you have all those big whales,
he makes close to $10 million a fight. So when these dummies out there, why does everyone have to go to? That's where the yen is, you geniuses.
Gotta go where the yen. What's the currency in Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia? I don't know. What is it?
I don't know. I'm going to Google it.
Yeah, Google it. Anyway.
What's the currency in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, what is the currency?
I'll tell you right now. Kwanda. Okay, we need a lot of Kwanda.
We need a little Kwanda. By the way, there's talk of Inoue fighting for a lot of Kwanda.
Really?
Yes. Maybe take 2 fish.
I'm down with yen. I'm down with Kwanda. All that currency. We can switch out.
He'll even take pesos.
Final flurries.
Moving on to Final Flurries. Mario, UFC 299. You literally said to me on Sunday, Steve, I think it's the greatest card I've ever seen. Really?
For UFC.
Okay.
For UFC. It was awesome. And I invited you, and you had plans.
I had
with
stuff
your family.
to do with the family. Love the family.
Dude, it's when you see.
Pains in the asses, but still, I love them. Come on.
No, I respect that. When the whole card, and it started at 7 o'clock, and there was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. Every single one was a banger. It was awesome. Every single one. And you know what's crazy is like I watched it with maybe 2 people. That's when you want to have a house full and a big party because it was like get off your seat. With all these moments, great moments. My boy Peter Yan, still who I think has some of the bigs. He's great. He came back.
Petra.
He looked fantastic. Dustin Poirier had the
I love Dustin. Dustin's a good guy.
Okay.
I interviewed him
Ironically, you mentioned Hagler coming up with a young beast with Mugabe. Very much the same.
Yeah.
He's a veteran now. Poirier, he came up against this dude who was special forces in France, just a bad dude. And he was coming aggressive and had his moments. And we thought, that's going to be all for Poirier. He kept going for this guillotine, but then started making adjustments because he can box. And he's a southpaw. And he started letting that left hand fly. Boom! Caught him with a big right hook. Dropped him. Ended up knocking him out. It was so incredible. Trump was there without you see him get excited and the whole thing. It was wild. And the main event with Sugar Sean O'Malley with the rematch against Chito Vera, he looked really good. And his boxing was on point. I think he's getting a little ahead of himself calling out Ilia Topuria, who's a really impressive fighter. I saw fight impressive from Spain, but via Georgia. He's calling him out. All these guys want to do these big weight jumps and be double champs, but it's not like boxing. We're talking they're big gaps.
Yeah.
155 to 170.
Traditional 8.
The traditional 8 in boxing, and it's going to stay that way. But it was so entertaining. It was so good. There was no lull, no delay. And 3 hours go by.
3 hours. 7 fights, 3 hours.
But it was incredible. And the whole thing flew by, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Not to mention the prelims, which were also really good. But it was just solid all the way up and down.
So the way I would say it, less was more.
Less was more, and I think Dana White himself has been asked multiple times, and we saw a clip recently about him being asked, we should play it if we got it, where just the pace is so important for the production of the people sitting in the arena, for the people sitting at home. You have to realize it's a show at the end of the day. People need to be entertained and stay entertained.
Something where he did not like one of the special entrances with the bells and whistles. He kind of said, I'm not a fan of that. I found that interesting.
I didn't see that. I didn't see him. I didn't see him say that because a lot of the fighters these days have special entrances and stuff. Bruce Buffer, who's very different from his brother, Michael Buffer, does with all the energy. That's a lot of bells and whistles as it is. But man, once the fight starts, it was really entertaining.
Wow,
I got it all recorded. You got to check it out.
7 fights in 3 hours.
Yeah, and it flew by. You can't even. It flew by.
I'm just saying it can be done. That's
Absolutely.
all I'm saying.
If it even took that, Kim. If it even took that.
Because we've timed it out before. We have actually timed out the high end.
Yeah.
Mario, I'm not going to say too much because there are 3 episodes in. 4th one is tonight.
You got a new show.
I'm going to give a strong Crouching Tiger recommendation. Shogun on FX.
You like that, huh?
I do. I was giving...
Can I stream that too somewhere?
Oh, yeah, you can stream that.
What is it, Hulu?
Hulu, yeah.
Hulu, okay, that's where I think I saw it.
It's basically the Game of Thrones with a bunch of Asians.
Is it samurais?
Yeah.
You know what? One of my favorite Tom Cruise movies, believe it or not, The Last Samurai.
The Last Samurai.
That's underrated.
Yeah.
Do you know that movie?
Yeah, of course.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
You don't like it?
It's okay. I mean, but
What's the
also...
matter with you? I thought that was good for Tom Cruise. I thought it was
although,
gonna be
unlike Game of Thrones, there's no flying carp. But
dragons?
we'll see. No flying dragons, none of that. But it's good. I like it. The 4th episode is tonight. And Mario, I got a couple shout-outs there during the Academy Awards.
Dude, Jimmy Kimmel's now giving me like 4 shout-outs.
Oh.
I couldn't believe it. I'm very honored.
Oh, Jimmy.
Jimmy's giving me 4 shout-outs, which is kind of nice, being synonymous there with celebs
still
entertainment.
hasn't caught up to Family Guy. Seth likes you.
That's right.
Seth.
No, we get random shout-outs all the time in all these different shows. Somebody just sent me a clip. There's a new movie on Netflix with John Cena and Zac Efron called Ricky Stenicki about this imaginary friend, and it turns out to be John Cena. I got a shout-out in that. So random.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that random? Look at
That
your
is
boy
random.
getting shout-outs right here.
That is random.
In his 5th level, still
5th
getting
level.
shout-outs. I like it.
Yeah, but the Family Guy ones are the best.
Family
They
one,
put your
yeah.
face on
Those
there
are-
and everything.
yeah,
All right,
exactly.
I was like a giggity. All right, anyway, that's it for this week's edition of the 3 Knockdown Rule.
Long show.
On the UFC Fight Pass on behalf of Mario Lopez, Smoking Tim Frazier, and Tino on the edits. Till the next round, goodbye, everybody.